Greetings. Welcome back to the third video in this series about my future plans as president-elect of the nation. Wow, that still feels weird to say. So far, the Secret Service haven't come by, but I imagine they're still kind of busy sorting through their data. Who the heck is Alexander Roy Jarek, and where is he? Because apparently he's president-elect of the country, and what the fuck are we supposed to do about that? I imagine that is something that they are grappling with. Those databases are bloody well huge. Hey, those are the cats back there arguing. By the way, the first lady elect is with us today. She came home yesterday, so yeah. So but yeah, it's been a kind of weird several days in a lot of ways. Still have not been able to find a video of the supposed events at the polling stations where the angel vote was literally raining down on people as the vote was being counted. Not sure. Starting to look a little bit more like I might be imagining this whole series of events, or something. Not sure about that, but we'll see. We'll see. And I wanted to today really address the youth of the nation, the voting age youth, not the like pre-high school kids, but the young adults and soon to be young adults that seem to have overwhelmingly swung into Trump's camp during the election before the whole, divine intervention incident. I get that a lot of you guys are really upset by this, we are not getting to have relationships with our female age mates in our culture. And I want you to take a serious look at yourselves and ask why. Why aren't we getting to have those relationships when our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents totally did in earlier eras? And there's a couple of major reasons I can think of. And most of them are not your fault. It's nothing you did. I mean, some of the things it is something you did. But, I mean, voting for Trump, almost every member of the female half of the human race I've talked to, that's a huge red flag for them, especially in your age bracket. A literal red flag. You're waving around the Republican banner, and they are well aware that means you're not on their side. Their side is not the red-pilled side of the culture. Red ideology is against their interests, and for intuitively obvious reasons, they're not going to go with someone as a romantic partner that opposes what is best for them. That's just, would you, in the same context, would you vote Democrat if the Democrats were aggressively against your interests as you perceive them? No, you wouldn't, because you didn't, because you do, and you all know it. Now just apply the same logic to the female half of the population, and what conclusions do you come to? It's pretty obvious. Now, the I'm a nice guy routine, no, they're wise to that. They've always been wise to that. They are way more intuitive than we are by orders of magnitude. They can sense when they are being deceived in a way that is way harder for us. So they're not gonna fall for it. Trying to be a nice guy ain't gonna work if you're not genuine about and actually are a nice guy. You gotta work on yourself to actually become a nice guy before that whole nice guy routine will actually work, because it can't be a nice guy routine. It has to be from the heart, or else they can tell you're faking and they're not going to fall for that. You can't trick them that way. They are way more intuitive and way more in touch with subtle cues that we just don't even know exist. So, yeah. But there's another aspect here that is not in your control at all, that is not something you can influence directly, except on a very personal level. And that is the economic standing of people our age. People do not want to have children when they are in a financially shaky situation. It's really that simple. It's really that straightforward. If they don't want to have children, and abortion isn't an option, and contraception is being made rarer, harder to obtain, more difficult, blah, 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 they're not going to want to have sex at all. It's really very straightforward. This idea that abstinence only is the only acceptable form of birth control, yeah, dude, they're using it. You've told them, well, the Republican leadership has told them, who you supported in this election, that if you have sex, you are required to have children. There's a really intuitively obvious corollary right there. If abstinence is the only acceptable form of birth control, and I don't want to have kids, I won't have sex. Done. Easy. So when you look at it from that perspective, things start making sense, which didn't make sense before. They don't want to have like 16, 17, 18 children because that could kill them. Michelle Duggar is an outlier on every imaginable level, especially the fact that she's managed to survive having 19 kids and counting. That is typically fatal for a woman. That will kill her. Do you want to kill your future wife? Is that something you are in favor of, my dude? Really? You're gonna go there? It's intuitively obvious if you would rather your wife die than have an abortion, why no woman wants to have sex with you. You're not putting her first. A strong man, a powerful man, a man that is respected by the opposite gender and his own, protects that which is part of his group. So if you're not protecting your wife or girlfriend or fiance or whatever from the people that want to do her harm, even if it's only by restricting her access to potentially life-saving medical intervention for some ideological reason, nobody's going to respect that. I don't respect that. The women don't respect that. Nobody respects that. That is not a respectable thing to do. And it shows. It shows. You guys are having your first sexual experiences with your preferred partners decades after previous generations. Are you at all surprised by this as you swing more and more and more and more against their interests? It's really not that hard to understand. If you are for them, if you want what is best for them, not just what is best for you, they'll respect that. They'll be on board. They will see you as someone that is, so to speak, marriage worthy. If you don't, they won't. It's really not rocket science here, people. This is intuitively obvious type stuff. The stuff that, like, once you realize what you're doing wrong, you're smacking yourself in the head over not having seen it sooner. If you do not do what is in support of their interests, not just your own, they won't go for that. They will not be with you. They will not be on board with your plans. They will not want you. And the fact that y'all voted overwhelmingly for Trump proves beyond a reasonable doubt that this is in point of fact the case. You are not in favor of what is in their interests. You are only out for yourselves. Now, obviously that's not all of you. Some of you are not only out for yourselves, but those of you who voted for Trump have given a very clear signal to the overwhelming majority of the country, no, I only care about me. Now, keep in mind, you are young. Almost all of you are young. And that means you've got plenty of time to change course. You've got plenty of time to redirect your energies into something more productive, more interesting to women. I was watching this video yesterday on YouTube to try to understand how the election went better, and it was something interesting that I heard. I watched a couple of related videos that I found, and they all were saying the same thing. Guys these days on dates, most of the time, only talk about themselves. They don't ask what the woman's interest is. They don't listen calmly and patiently while she talks about herself. And women, for intuitively obvious reasons, they see that as selfish, self-entitled. They see that as not being willing to really commit to them being a full partner in the relationship. And that's a problem for all you guys out there who are doing this because they're not about that. Would you be if the positions were reversed? I don't think so. I know I wouldn't be if the positions were reversed. But the positions aren't reversed in my case. They're not. I lead conversations mostly by asking other people what their position is before I do anything else. Now, obviously in these videos, I kind of can't do that because we can't have a direct conversation through these kind of videos the way we would, if we were face-to-face talking. And I think that's a big part of the problem. A lot of people these days don't even really understand, apparently, how to talk to people face-to-face. They don't understand how to have a normal conversation. Now, they understand how to talk to people online quite well, which is fair. I mean, the whole COVID thing did really kind of impact the culture and the electorate in ways we haven't even begun to understand, let alone come to grips with. But this video isn't about the electorate and so on so much as it is about you who are watching personally. You need to look at yourself and be like, where am I falling down in my dating game? Where is my mating game not up to grade? Why am I not getting it with these people that I want to be with? What is my failing? And I guarantee you it is not money. I am still right now in the income bracket, since I'm not actually president and receiving the presidential salary yet, right? I'm in the income bracket where I have to use food banks to just put food on the table. But I'm married. So, yeah, guys out there and women. Women, if you are watching this right now and nodding along, here's where I flip the script on you. Part of the key points for getting married in the first place for almost every man, one of the things we are definitely seeking from you when we put that ring on, we are expecting and will be very, very, very upset if we do not get sex on tap from our wife. It's an on-demand kind of world. You're not putting out, your husband will not be happy in your relationship. Simple as. Straightforward, easy to understand. If you are not giving him the sexual release he expected from being married, you will not have a happy marriage. Full stop. That's it. He gets sex when he puts that ring on, or that ring ain't going to stay on for too long. It's really that simple. Do not try to weaponize sex as a way to get what you want, it will get you the opposite of what you want. Now, my wife, nope, she's not like that. She doesn't play those kind of games. She is just as enthusiastic about it as I am, for intuitively obvious reasons. I mean, sex is good, right? We all like sex. I mean, okay, there's asexuals who are just totally not interested. And I would honestly advocate that they form relationships with other asexuals who are just totally not interested when and where possible. I think that's going to be a good marriage because neither of them is interested. That's just not an aspect that is of importance to them, and therefore neither will feel upset that the other doesn't want to provide that type of relationship. There really should be some kind of like asexual dating app. That really should be a thing. I don't know why someone hasn't done it. You know, Silicon Valley tech bros, get on that. Get on that. There should be an asexual dating app. Like, it is very big, bold letters right at the top. No, you're not here to find a hookup. None of these people on this web app want sex with anyone at all, ever. But if you fall into that category, hey, do we have a product for you? So people have said that sex is completely inherent to the human experience, to which I just pretty much laughed in their faces and said, what about asexual people? And they don't seem to know how to process that. Honestly, it upsets them that that is a thing, which instantaneously disproves their thesis in like 20 words or less. Now, sex is central to almost every human's experience. Like, the overwhelming majority of the population, I'm not sure of the exact statistics, but I know it is like way higher than the number of asexual people by orders of magnitude. We're talking 80 to 90% of the population at least are not asexual. So it is very central to most humans' lived experience, but that's not the same as all of us. The world is incredibly diverse. There are millions of different kinds of people, and every single human as an individual is also unique, even if they fit into large numbers of different aggregate kinds. Almost nobody will exactly fit into the same set of aggregate kinds of person that anyone else does, like one-to-one exactly. That is stupidly rare. Just crazy rare for people to be exactly on the same wavelength about every issue. Me and my wife do not see eye to eye on some things. Now, I married her because we see eye to eye on the overwhelming majority of things, but not everything. Not everything. So, that, for example, my wife is still Christian, whereas I am an Americanist. We have a multi-faith household. That's fine. As I said, I was a Christian until comparatively recently. I'm not really trying to convert her to Americanism because my spiritual truth and her spiritual truth do not have to be the same. That's part of why we have a separation between church and state in this country. And there is, for many men these days, part of the problem. They want everyone in the world to be just like them, for us all to fit in this very narrow field of lived experiences right here, as represented by this bundle of wire that I've always been filming as the background of these videos. The problem is, this here, this is what we call a fascist bundle, which is the same root word as fascist. These people want to make their fellow countrymen into a fascist bundle. That's why they've turned to fascism. The problem is, America's more like that. We've all got different paths, different directions to our lives. We're going different ways. But we're all a country. Those are all the same kind of wire still. You can see that, right? That's all the same kind of wire. It's all made of the same metals. And that metal is an alloy. America is an alloy. It always has been. America is not made of iron. We did not build our country with iron. We built it out of steel. And steel is not a single element. America is not a song of one note. America is diversity. America is multiple faiths, multiple cultures, multiple languages, multiple ethnicities, multiple races, multiple everythings coming together. It's right there in the national motto, printed on so very much of our money. E pluribus unum. From many, one. Many cultures, one people. Many faiths, one creed. Many ethnicities, one species. Many groups, one nation. That is America. From many, one. And this is why this whole obsession with border security and illegal immigration is total, utter, and complete bullshit. And honestly, pretty stupid. Now, I'm not saying just open up the border. Good God, am I not saying open up the border. There are racists in other countries that are even worse than the ones we have here. Some of them, anyway. There are, looking at you, parts of Japan. You guys, okay, we're racist in a lot of cases here in America, but you guys turned it into an Olympic sport. Your very language denies the personhood of anyone who isn't Japanese. Seriously. Gaijin. Break down the word. Foreign thing. Not foreigner. Foreign thing. Yeah, imagine that I walked up to someone in Japan, just casually, if you're Japanese and you're watching this, probably a Japanese American, and you know Japanese. I walk up to some Japanese guy and I'm like, Nihonjin, Nihonjin. They would lose their shit at me. At worst, of course. I mean, they might also just titter in embarrassment and run away. I'm not sure which would happen, right? But they would not be pleased by my saying that to them, right? It would expose the racist hypocrisy of their culture in a way they really couldn't cope with directly without confronting said racist hypocrisy in their own mind. That is a racism on a level that I just can't with, because people are totally racist in this country. There are a lot of racists in America, but not like that. Not like that. At least mostly not anymore are they like that. The antebellum South may have been kind of like that, but I wasn't there. I was not alive at that point in time, so I can't really speak to that from lived experience. Whereas the Japanese thing, again, I've never been to Japan. I do not know exactly what goes on inside that country, but my mother has. As part of the United States Armed Services, she served a tour of duty in Japan on a military base there. So she can speak to how the Japanese acted, at least back in the 1970s. Things might have changed in the intervening years. So I've heard from some of the Japanese people. There's been work to redefine that word in an effort to remove the negative connotation of saying foreign thing instead of foreign personer. However, I would point out that Japanese is not mostly, at least, written with an alphabetic script. So redefining words that way doesn't work, because being made of an ideographic script, a script where the idea of the word is encapsulated in a picture that forms the word as written, similarly to Chinese, those connotations, when you break down the actual character itself, are still intuitively visible to any Japanese person reading it in the iconographic form. The word foreign thing is right there in the symbol for gaijin. And that's something that I'm mentioning that because it shows you just how diverse humanity is, how diverse humanity has always been. We've got problems with racism in this country, a lot of them, but not like the Japanese do. And again, that is not my culture. I am not president of Japan. I am commenting on it as a way of illustrating how that kind of thing affects my country here in America. Our racism problems, again, it comes into the whole young men today are not getting what they need, because for most human beings, sex actually is a need. It is not a luxury in the same way some of these other things people act like a luxury is. And we are seeing that because there is a rising crisis throughout the world where we are producing children at below replacement rate. That is a big problem. The ideology-based solutions that are being offered by Republicans and similar religiously motivated groups throughout the world aren't going to work. They have put forward all these different ideas for how to fix this lack of children that we're having. And all of them have already been tried elsewhere and failed because they are unwilling to do what it takes to fix the central core problem that is really holding back the birth rate. And that central core problem is a lack of jobs. When people are gainfully employed, when they feel confident about their future, when they feel like things are getting better, the world is improving, standards are rising, healthcare is more accessible, wages are up, benefits are up, the economy is strong, you can get a job just by walking into any factory in the union and saying, hey, foreman, I need some work, what you got for me? And you will have a job at least for that day and maybe for the rest of your life if you're not a complete dumbass who causes more problems than you solve by being a worker. And those people do exist. We've all met them. We know those guys. But if you aren't one of those guys, and you'll have a job for life if you perform well for the first week, the foreman will be like at the end of the day, hey, can you come back tomorrow? We still need you. You keep doing that for 7 days. He's like, hey, would you like a full-time position? When that is the kind of economy you have, oh, wait, we've already seen that, haven't we? That was the 1950s. What happened in the 1950s? Someone help me out here. Oh, right, yeah, the baby boom. The boomers were born in the 50s. Things genuinely were better in the 50s. Why? Why were they so much better? Well, actually a large number of reasons. Way too large to list in just this video, right? I would spend the entire rest of the time just listing them off. But one of the key ones is that the rich, the plutocrats, the obnoxiously way too much money, more than they could spend in 100 lifetimes if they tried, they pretty much didn't exist back then. There weren't any. And who is responsible for changing that? Oh, right, the Heritage Foundation. The rich people were getting their asses kicked up, down, and sideways by labor during that time. Jobs were strong. Job growth was even bigger. Our entire country was hungry for workers. We could take everything that the rest of the world could throw at us in terms of a labor force and still be hungry for more. Immigration was huge. It had been huge for almost 70 years at that point. And never in our country's history were we in a position of greater strength. Not once. We stood astride the world like a colossus. Now, our hands were locked in a wrestling match with the hands of a rival colossus, the Soviet Union, at that point in history. Here's the thing I think most people didn't understand about that wrestling match. It wasn't actually weakening either side. It was making both of us stronger than we would have been without it. The Soviet Union, having this radically opposed worldview to America, strengthened America's own view of itself. Because, as I said, the plutocrats were getting their asses kicked by labor, which might sound like the Soviets were winning, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Plutocracy is the enemy of capitalism. When capital becomes entirely concentrated in a small number of people's hands at the top, the capitalist system breaks down completely. Because capitalism is founded upon, centrally, the idea of entrepreneurship. That if you start a business, you can make it profitable, make it earn money for you, and live high on the hog by innovation and creating progress for your fellow countrymen. That is the heart and soul of capitalism. The capitalist class, billionaires, trillionaires, those people are destroying capitalism from the inside. They are cancer cells inside the capitalist system that eat away at capitalism's central mechanisms to fuel their own growth and ascension. That is why capitalism is failing throughout the Western world. It is the capitalist class themselves that are destroying it. Because, as I mentioned in a previous video, the end game for that type of capitalist is to destroy capitalism so totally that they change it from capitalism to a sort of techno-barbarian feudalism, where the rich get what they want and the poor get nothing. And that is what they've openly stated they want to have happen, that unless you are willing to work slavishly for their interests instead of your own, you will get nothing from them. They are full mask off and have been for years. Why are we still putting up with this crap? America is a capitalist country. We have been pretty much from the beginning, but these people are openly stating they want to destroy capitalism and replace it with a feudalist society where the rich are the landed lords and they give orders to us lowly peasants that we are forced to obey. That doesn't sound like capitalism to me. That sounds like slavery. And I want no part of that for myself or for the rest of the country. I don't give a damn what religion you worship at any level. I am indifferent to which version of God you pray to. Again, going back to a previous video, God's corporeal form does in fact exist, but it's the entire universe combined. It is so huge that humans cannot imagine something that big. We can't really wrap our heads around the concept, which is why for the longest time we thought he didn't have a corporeal form, because the corporeal form is so big that it's incomprehensible to us. And as it keeps coming up, I say he in this context. God is not male. God is not female. God is not an inanimate object. God is all of that and more, and things altogether weirder than that by orders of magnitude. Because God is everything in the universe. God is a part of the smallest quark to the largest black hole. All of that is part of God. So God is both man and woman, since God is a part of every man and woman. You can't really call him he without it being at least a little inaccurate. However, it is a nice, convenient, short, easy to understand cultural touchstone to call him he as a matter of convenience, so I do. Now, moving right along from that, back to the guys out there watching this video. You need to work on yourselves, boys. I don't care if you are 80 or 8. You are a boy until you learn how to be a diverse, interested, creative, approachable, socially passable, if not necessarily adroit. I'm certainly not socially adroit. When you get to the point that you will protect what is yours, but not with violence as a first resort, you will use your words. We keep telling the children, use your words. And yet so many men in this country would prefer, as their default way of doing things, to use their fists as their means of communication. That's a problem. You're not handling things at all well if your preferred method of communication is to use your fists instead of your words. That's just really a giant problem that we have in this country right now. And the women, they can sense that kind of energy. They can recognize that kind of behavior, and they're like, nope, I don't want any part of that. That kind of guy is not for me. That's what they're telling us. And you are refusing to listen. You're basically acting like a rapist. And no woman is ever going to even be willing to be in the same room as without beating him into shit, like beating him till he is hamburger, a man that has raped her, let alone have a consensual relationship with him. When you act like rapists, all the alarm bells in their heads go off. Every last one. And you are at all surprised that they don't want to have a relationship with you? If you are trying to be an alpha male, newsflash, boys, alpha males don't even exist among wolves. When we observe wolves in the wild as opposed to in captivity, guess where we find the leader of the pack? We don't find him leading the pack. We find him at the back of it, making sure nobody falls behind when the pack is moving. That's where you find the alpha of a wild wolf pack, is at the back, making sure nobody gets left behind. It's the same motto as the United States Marine Corps. No one left behind. That right there is why the Marine Corps gets the prettiest girls. The prettiest girls have their pick of mates. So a man who takes as his motto the words, no one gets left behind, that's the kind of man they want. That's what they're interested in. They want the kind of man who fights not for himself, but to protect those around him. He's not interested in his own advancement as much as he is the advancement of his society, the members of his tribe, so to speak, within that society. They want the kind of guy who puts other people first instead of himself. If you're not doing that, they're not interested. And honestly, really, talk to yourselves a little bit. Just have a little bit of a chat with your inner self. Would you? Would you want that kind of person as your partner in life? I don't think so. I certainly wouldn't. So that is something you have to keep in mind, that this is going to be something you're going to have to wrestle with. That they aren't interested in men that are not willing to put other people's needs ahead of that person, that man's needs. If he doesn't put other people's well-being ahead of his own, they don't want him. So that's where a lot of people are falling down today. I'm married. I've been married. I have a strong, committed relationship with my wife. Now, it's definitely not a typical relationship in many ways. That's certainly true. But it's strong, it's committed, it's firm. We are in this for the long haul, for, wedding to death. That's our game plan here. And if you are one of those guys who's like, trying to have a chick on the side without telling his girlfriend and making sure she's okay with it, yeah, there's your problem, my dude. There's your problem. It has been said that a marriage can survive anything except infidelity. Now, some marriages do survive infidelity. Some. But they are very few. And it always involves, when they do, a great deal of soul-searching, sacrifice, and willingness to atone by both parties. Because infidelity does not happen out of the blue. There are things that lead to that. Emotional distance, a lack of a sexual component, if a sexual component is needed because they're not both asexuals. Things like that. There are always things that lead into the infidelity. Someone fails to provide what the other needs before cheating begins. Every single time without exception. That never doesn't happen. There is always a reason. Now, occasionally that reason is, I'm a man, I can do what I want. Well, yeah, you're correct. You can do what you want. But as we see in the Disney movie Brave, but are you willing to pay the price your freedom will cost? Yeah, you can do what you want, my dude, but there are consequences. That's something that I find hilarious about these people that are, inspired by the Joker's laissez-faire, devil-may-cry attitude and how he does all this shit. Because the comics never really provide the correct counterpoint to the Joker taking that kind of attitude, which makes it attractive. And they should. Having absolute freedom to do whatever the fuck you please comes with a price tag attached. And the comics do not represent this with the Joker, or most of the other supervillains, like at all. The cost of doing whatever you please, whenever you please, however you please, is that you must also take individual and specific personal responsibility for the consequences of those actions you've taken. If no one else, as that one song says, can't nobody tell me nothing, if that's the case with you, well, can't nobody save you from your own mistakes either. You fuck up and you've been taking that attitude, that's completely on you. You have only yourself to blame or rely upon when those kind of events happen. You did that, that's on you. You are the one who fucked up, you are the one who did a stupid, and now you've got to pay for it. Now you've got to pay the piper for this ability you had for a while to do whatever the heck you wanted to. Because, newsflash, boys, the laws of physics, they exist. And they don't give a damn what you were trying to do if you try to do something the laws of physics are not okay with. You accelerate yourself from 0 to 500 mph in 2.5 seconds, it will kill you. Yeah, put that in your cauldron and stir it. That's a problem you're going to have. Physics don't play. The laws of physics are the kind of laws that you cannot break. They are self-enforcing, and the key penalty that they impose for breaking them almost every single time, or should I say more accurately, trying and failing to break them almost every single time, is the death penalty. You try to break the laws of physics and you fail, they kill you for it. It's really that straightforward. And this leaves us in this interesting position where we are bound by this set of laws that many of us don't even want to admit exist. Like the flat earth people. You guys are ducking, dipping, diving, and dodging to get away from actually going to Antarctica and proving that the ice wall hashtag has stuff past it? Why? Why? Assuming there is a world beyond the ice walls, right? Assuming that is the case, why don't you just go there to get away from the government's tyranny? People are offering to pay you millions of dollars to just go there in a guided tour, or even solo, drive some kind of specialized vehicle clean across the continent and prove to yourselves that hashtag no ice wall. I mean, yeah, sure, there's glacial cliffs at the edge of the entire continent in every direction. Fair, yeah, those ice walls are real, right? It is a giant stonking wall of ice. But past that is the rest of the continent, and when you get to the other side of the continent, because the world is, hashtag round, you're going to be at the other side of the continent where there's yet another ice wall, except this time you're on top of it rather than at the bottom. And game over for flat Earth. And you guys are avoiding that on purpose constantly because you know you're wrong. At some level, you know you're wrong. And if you're wrong about that, then that calls into question other parts of the Bible that say, the Bible allegedly says the earth is flat. Well, if the earth is not flat, in point of fact, then what does that mean for the rest of your faith? Right? That's a big problem a lot of you people seem to be wrestling with. O ye of little faith, where didst thou doubt? God works in mysterious ways his wonders to perform, and you are saying it has to be exactly as written down in the book because that makes it not mysterious? That's not how God works, bucko. That is not how this game gets played. Always we are discovering new facts about the universe, and we think we've cracked the code. We've uncovered every single aspect of the universe. The thing is, always we think that, and always it proves that God is more clever than we had thought. God is mystery. Now, yes, God is also gnosis. There are two main aspects of God. From of old, there have been seen to be the revelatory light. But there's also another aspect to God that doesn't get talked about much these days. The mysterious darkness. Both darkness and light are God. God conceals mysteries for us to unravel, just as he provides the light that finally reveals what they are. And therefore, it behooves us to approach our whole lives with humbleness, with calm, and an enlightened sense that it is okay for us to embrace the words written in the good book. Be still and know that I am. We do not get to dictate what God is or isn't supposed to be, and the more we try, the worse it goes for us. And everyone around us as well. And this right here is why this whole Project 2025 business is a fucking nightmare for so many people. Because your perfect world, in many respects, no matter what that perfect world is or who you are, could only be created on top of a mountain of corpses of those for whom that perfect world was their living nightmare. Don't be that guy. Don't try to climb to a position of power atop mountains of corpses of your fellow humans. That will bring suffering for everyone involved. Yes, that does include you. You will not end up getting what you wanted out of that exchange. As this one song from when I was young says, to the victor go the ashes of the spoils. You don't actually get what you want by doing that. You can't always get what you want. But if you try real hard, you can get what you need. And that is core. That is central to the way America is supposed to work. We are supposed to be a democracy because that is true. Now, the video is almost reaching an hour. You know, I like to call it right about there. 1 hour to view the video out of an entire day. That's what I ask in order to understand the points I'm making and where I've been going with all of this. It's the last 9 minutes, to quote a song by some other band, and I like songs, individual songs. There are very few bands that I bother to know their name because I like almost the entirety of their discography. I have never run into a single band in my entire life that I actually like their whole discography without exception. The closest I've ever come is the band Sabaton, who is Swedish and a metal band, and they sing about war. And Sabaton says that they do not glorify war in their music. And I think that they genuinely believe what they're saying there, but hold up just a second. Because while you guys don't glorify war, you do a lot of singing about those isolated and tiny parts of the absolute nightmare which is war that are inherently glorious. Now, the overwhelming majority of war is inglorious, it is nightmarish, it is hell, it is just the worst thing people can do to each other or experience. But there are isolated moments inside those nightmares that are glorious, and that is what Sabaton sings about a lot of the time. So their assertion that they don't glorify war, I think they think it's true, but it rings a little hollow. So going back to where I was going before I started on the little tangent about Sabaton. There are lots of things that we can do as Americans to get what we need out of life. And that's why we have a democracy. And it is when that democracy gets corrupted, perverted, and turned into a plutocracy or an oligarchy or whatever, that is where things start breaking down. I am going to talk about this more in a future video, maybe tomorrow, maybe later, but I am in favor of capitalism. I like capitalism. Capitalism is good. I am not in favor of big business. Big business is bad. Big business corrupts and destroys capitalism because the heart and soul of capitalism is the individual singular entrepreneur. The average citizen being able to found their own business and make that business profitable is the center point of a successful capitalist society, and that is not what we have right now. Big business is the enemy. Small business is the good guys. That is my position. I am in favor of small business. I am in favor of trust busting. I am in favor of antitrust lawsuits. I am in favor of wrecking shop on big business so that small business can grow, can thrive, can become a cornerstone of the American economy again. You should be able to create your own business, run it the way you want to, until it gets too big for its britches. when it stops being something that is managed by one person or at most a large extended family, and only the members of that large extended family, more or less, or an equivalent number of people for those who don't have a large extended family to work with. That is when you transition into big business, and legislation should crack down on your behavior hard, to the point that you almost cannot operate at that level. Almost, but not quite. Some things are actually good if we have big businesses running them. Take car manufacturing. Yeah, sure, there should be some small car manufacturers out there. There should be a lot of small car manufacturers out there. But a default, standardized car manufacturing meta should be the default. It should be the baseline that everybody expects to work with, so that all of those smaller car manufacturers have one of two choices. Work with these default baseline patterns that the big guys are working with already, or try to innovate in a way that is compatible with that default standard baseline. Or actually, there's a third option: try to break completely with that default standard baseline as a way to show the big guys that they're falling down on the job in terms of innovation. Those are the three modes for stuff like cars, your computer, maybe cell phones. That is the way it should all work. There's a couple of, a large number, not just a couple, but 8 or 9 major guys that through collaboration and the auspices of the central government regulating their practices produce a industry standard for everyone to work with. And then a whole slew of little guys below them that work within that standard to provide incremental innovations that can be added into or adopted as part of the standard. Or another group of small but pretty big, mid-size sort of companies that radically break with that standard as a way of showing them, look, the standard's okay and all, but you can improve here, 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 and here. We have that in the cell phone industry right now. We have for quite some time. Apple is that breaks with tradition, not with the industry standard. And your USB-C cord that probably powers your cell phone is a direct result of Apple going, okay, this USB design that you've got for these cell phones early on, this mini USB that you're working with, it's just not that good. Honestly, we can do better, and we just did. And Apple continues to innovate, and in that one specific area, Apple has fallen behind the rest of the industry in many areas. But in terms of the power connector, Apple continues to be superior to the Android platform. That's just fact. Now, here's where things start going wrong. The federal government, this needs to be talked about in a future video, but it is actually, in point of fact, part of the federal government's job to choose winners and losers in the economy. That's part of the point of having a government at all. Lead-based paint. Yeah. A lot of companies were making lots of money off lead-based paint. Federal government realized it was having such disastrous health problems that it was costing the culture more than those companies were able to make up for in tax revenue. And they're like, no, that's it. You're done. No more lead-based paint. It is hurting people. You're not allowed to produce it. You're not allowed to sell it. Now there's regulations that you have to disclose if it was used on a building, if you're trying to sell the building, which is fair because health problems are health problems. So this is where we're going to wrap up for the day. We're going to call it a close here. There's a couple of topics we need to cover more later, but for right now, guys, if you are not able to land a girl, you need to take a strong look at why they are rejecting you. And it's not just because they hate you. It's because you specifically said or did something that made them go, okay, hold up, this one's not for me. You need to figure out what their behaviors are that are making them have that red flag about you. It's not just generalized hatred. You have to work on you. If you cannot love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else? Okay? If you can't love and respect and honor women for the contributions they make to our society and your life, why in the hell would they want to be with you? Would you want to be with someone who is constantly disrespecting you? I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I don't think that's going to happen. So look at yourselves, look hard, and figure out what it is about you that they're not liking and work on that. Fix your shit before you try to fix their shit.